This is Snakes and Otters, a pointless discussion of eternal questions. Get ready. We're about to live in your head rent-free.
Hello, Otterites. This is episode 199.
I am Martin.
And I'm Robert.
And I'm Francis.
I'm Marcus.
And I'm Cajun.
That's all five of us in the band, folks. This is our first Code of Honor with the new expanded lineup.
It's like going from Triumph to the Stones.
Oh, that's
I was going to
good.
say the Police to...
Oh, that's
something.
another good
Yeah.
trio.
Yeah, I was
Well,
going
I was going to refer to y'all as Simon Funkel and Garfunkel, you know, and what's his name that disappeared?
What?
Simon Garfunkel and...
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
No,
That's the third one, the Simon and Garfunkel.
I didn't think so, but yeah, hey,
Well, I mean, you got Rush is your power trio.
Yeah, it's-
Triumph is your power trio. The Police is a trio.
absolutely. And, you know, we've actually had some discussions offline about what our new five version is. Martin favors the Stones. I favor the Eagles, mostly because we're all older.
Well, but we don't fight and bitch at each other like
Well,
they
that's true, but, you know, there's some truth like
I
that.
mean, we could start.
No, let's not. No, it's not. No. But this is a Code of Honor episode. The first time we've done this when we are five. And this is Francis, of course, sitting in the captain's chair at Studio F this fine day. And we're going to do some quotations, folks, that will knock your socks off because we have no idea where this is going to go. We have literally pulled these right out of our asses, and we're going to see if Robert the Hammer can truly live up to his name.
Yes, the bar has been massively upped, as I mentioned in the
Yeah.
pre-show.
You've
prep.
got to clear 22 feet, brother.
That's right,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
these two new guys, you don't ever know where they're going to go.
No,
So-
well, just the fact that there are 4 quotes to try and pull together.
That's right.
But as I said to Cajun, I can make anything relate to the inherent dignity of the human person.
Probably so. And I mean, even though there's 2 new wild cards in the deck, you still kind of know that we're all going to be pretty positive on that. So,
As long as they aren't draw 4 cards, like you know.
well, no,
Exactly.
none of that stupid stuff. No, that's right.
Stupid stuff. Wow.
You like Uno, though, really?
Uno.
Uno.
There's
I know, I misspoke. It's Uno. Yes,
Yes.
correct.
Yeah, well, who doesn't?
Well, that's
Besides
true.
you.
No, I do like Uno. I haven't. It's been a long time. I just haven't thought of it lately. But yeah, Uno is fun.
Because, you know, we are of the age where we sit around and play card games sometimes.
And you know, and that is a strength and a virtue of our generation because card games are absolutely
Well,
cool.
yes, because we can entertain ourselves. I say this without electronic devices, as 2 of our number are sitting here staring at their phones.
They're checking their quotes because they don't
Yes, they're-
know.
they're just
'cause
checking
they
their
don't know which one I'm going to pick first because that's the advantage of being captain of Code of Honor, and it's always whoever's hosting this weekend who's going to go first.
Oh, that's right. Captain's prerogative. You could
That's
just
right.
point and say, all right, you have to go.
Yeah, because it's a lot different than is it you or is it me? Now there's 4 of us here. I guess I'm gonna lead this in the way that we've done this before. But I think what I'm gonna do is for now, because we got to keep this tight. We got 5 of us to get these things in and do decent justice to them. I'm gonna start in slow, and I'm just gonna go to Martin first, because you know he's had the most experience beside myself. Start with yours, brother, and see where we go, and then we'll go from there.
I think you guys will like this one. I'm going to do something a little different from what I normally do. Normally, I do
good.
real historical personages and real quotes, but I'm going to go fictional
Good.
and
I like
do
that.
Buster Kilrain from Killer Angels
Okay.
and
So essentially, you're quoting Michael Shara.
Michael Shara, and of
The
course
author.
the screenwriters of Gettysburg maintained that speech.
They stole most of that direct from Shara. They lifted
Yeah.
it.
Which is good. I mean, he did win the Pulitzer. Not necessarily for that. Was it for that book?
Yes.
Yeah, it was for the book. Yes,
Yeah,
for the
for that
Killer
book,
Angels,
yes.
which was essentially they originally were going to have Gettysburg called that, and they thought people don't know what that means. We want them to know what it really means. That's why they changed the title at the last minute.
Which is fine.
And certainly that name is from Kilrain's speech.
That's right. Exactly. That's
Because
where
he
he's
says, you know, if he's an angel, he's damn sure a killer angel.
right.
But this one's been on my mind the last week or two. This seems like a time when there's a lot of group identity stuff going on.
Right.
It's kind of out there in our
The
consciousness.
best quotations, I think, come with a little bit of deliberation over time.
Yeah, so it's on my brain that there's all this group identity thing going on, and I just wanted to just hit the short one. Any man who judges by the group is a peewit.
Short and to the point.
That's right. That was not exactly in the movie that way, was it? It was
Yes.
very similar to that. Yeah,
Yes.
The peewit word, I'm not remembering it in there.
Yeah.
Yes,
man
that's
who
coming.
judges
Yeah, you're
by
right.
Group is a peewit.
That's right.
So what was the context of the quote? What was he talking about specifically?
Well, they're talking. He and
Chamberlain.
of course, currently, Jeff Daniels. They're under a tree. It's before the battle, but it's that
At Little Round Top.
Yeah, that famous.
They're on the way. and
on the
this
way.
is-
They haven't reached Gettysburg, I think, at this point.
That's correct. Yeah, it's
Okay.
before the first day has been going
Yeah.
on at the same time, but it hasn't happened for them.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't want to get too much into the details of the battle because that'll really send us down a rabbit hole.
Anyway, yes. So they're under a tree. I think they've just found a runaway.
Okay.
That's right. That's exactly it.
And so they're discussing the nature of humanity, essentially. And, again, Chamberlain's this great
Dare I say it?
idealist.
An eternal question.
Yes, an eternal question. Again, the inherent dignity of the human person.
There you go. My work is done.
So, and Kilrain's like, well, I don't know about all of that, Colonel. You're an idealist. You're a darling man. But my thing is, I will be treated as I deserve.
not as my father.
Not as my
deserved.
father.
That's it. I remember
And
the quote now.
he didn't. My name is Kilrain, and I damn all gentlemen. Because he's from the old country. He's like
Ireland. Yeah.
yeah, first generation. He's lived under that, this Irish English mess, and come to America so that he could be who he is, not who his father was. And so that was, to him, if you judge by the group, you're a peewit. You can't think about people as a group, no matter what group you're thinking of. And again, Chamberlain being that idealist, he's wanting to save the group of the African descendants.
Right.
And Kilrain's like, well, that's great, but judge everybody individually. Think about everyone as an individual. You think about people as a group, you're a peewit.
Well, and Chamberlain says something to the effect about that at that during that conversation. I don't remember if it's before or after, but he's talking about that before the war he would meet Africans, as he called them, and he would see simply a man. As he was saying, there was no
There
differentiation.
was always the divine spark.
That's exactly it. There was always the divine spark.
And as Kilrain tells him, well, I don't know about all that.
That's right.
Right. That's a little high-minded for Buster.
Well, that's right. Which therein in that dichotomy, of course, therein lies. Yeah, okay.
Word boner.
That's right. That's where the magic happens because you're taking these two individuals that are essentially arguing the same thing.
And they're
from
thrown together.
Completely different that should never have met because socially speaking, they are galaxies apart.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Chamberlain, the
it's-
college professor, and then here's Kilrain, this long time, just kind of Irish immigrant peasant,
Who served in the army.
army for years.
Yeah.
And here they are thrown together, depending on one another.
Right, because Kilrain, even though he does not hold the stripes at the time, because if you read the novel, he had them taken away from him, is essentially the sergeant major of the unit, of the regiment.
Yeah.
He's the one that
he's the experienced infantryman
he's
that all the rest have
he's
to work
the NCO.
to.
That's right, and he has done this for a long. He says, I've been in the army since you was in books. It's the first 1,000 miles or so. After that, you get limber with
Yeah,
your
your
feet.
feet get limber after the first 1,000 miles, Colonel.
So basically, judge not by the obvious, but of their character and qualities.
Well, that's Dr.
Exactly.
King. That's exactly right. I dream of the man the day where we are all judged by the content of our character, not the color of our skin.
Right, and that's the
That's-
Kilrain was saying.
That's right. Which is ironic because Michael Shaw wrote that post that speech. He wrote it in the mid-'70s.
Yes,
Yes.
but you go that far back, it wasn't always just the color of the skin. Sometimes whether you're Irish, Italian, Scottish,
Catholic.
Catholic.
Well, that's correct. That's right. It's very
judged on
broad.
Many things. besides
Prejudice
the color of
knows
the
no
skin.
boundaries in many respects.
Or as P.J. O'Rourke once wrote, a mob will never buy you lunch.
That's a good way to put it.
That's right. There's no peace there.
Take your fellows one at a time because a mob will never buy you
Well,
lunch.
you don't have time for them to buy you lunch because you're whooping their butts for being a mob to begin with.
Or being whooped by them, depending on how many.
I got more bullets than there is mob.
Because you just got to drop the first couple, and the rest of them get scared.
I was going to say,
That's a
I know
good point,
you two
yes.
guys can get this very, very well, Cajun and Bart.
All I need is a clear field of fire.
So, very good, gentlemen.
So I think the thing that is great about your quote, Martin, is that it truly is the discussion of an eternal question.
Absolutely.
And it is not just us observing that, just the fact that we talked about that in the context of so many different people recognizing it across decades and in different centuries and contexts is proof of that. That it is something that is a recognition of, again, it's that inherent dignity thing. It is something that is a universal truth, and it's something that you either have to respect or ignore. There is no in between.
Yeah. Don't put people in a box.
Right.
Well,
I like
yeah.
to say don't put God in a box, but don't put people in a box either.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, or treat them as 3/5 of a person, which we talked about in one of our recent episodes
Yes.
too.
Don't put baby in a corner.
Don't
That's
do
very
that either.
well. That's very. If you
No-
want
nobody
to go
puts baby in.
feminist, that's exactly right. That's there's a and that movie. That was actually an excellent movie. Patrick Swayze, gone far too early from us, very much. So he's one. I think he had a far more talent than he was ever really able to let loose because of his early death. But you're right. That was commenting on the. Oppression of women, I'll go ahead and say it, in the early 60s when that took place. And it was, of course, the movie came out in the 80s, and it very clearly talked about what you're talking about here. Is you judge people by their character. And you don't, because they are a black or a woman or whatever you want, whatever
Whatever social
marginalized
class it
social
is,
class
yeah.
is that is marginalized at the moment, must not be treated that way.
Now I must say this. That was dedicated to Mrs. Francis from a comment made this morning at breakfast.
Oh, really? Which I certainly didn't catch.
Acknowledgement of women
Oh,
throughout
yeah.
the West and so forth.
Oh,
when
yeah,
we're
that's
discussing that
I
possibility.
do remember hearing that. That's correct. And it takes the female voice, which unfortunately we lack in here in our fivesome in our band. Although we're all married, and I'd like to think with one exception, but you have been married more than numerous times. So certainly,
I'll say it, yes.
right?
and
Yes. So we.
I probably have more experience, maybe besides Mark, but though he has been married the longest, though
Well, that's true because you've been married, longer than any of the rest of us.
I have multiple experiences from many points of view and genders and across the board.
Okay.
Yes, Marcus has the depth when it comes to marriage. You have the breadth.
Very well.
Very well said. Very well said.
Okay. Excellent, sir Hammer. Let's move on because we.
Well, no.
I just want to.
Marcus hasn't had a chance
I was
to
going to say.
comment.
Oh, no.
No, we should all comment on the quotes. That's
Well,
kind of the format.
Yeah. You see, the quote that I'm doing really hits on with this.
Well, that's good. Themes are always good.
Well, but maybe that's what we just need to do is let's slide over and let you do it all.
Well, I was going to do one other quick.
You had a point to
another
make.
one. Go
Okay.
for it.
Because there's a flip side, of course, to that.
Okay.
Is again this. I just feel like right now, in the current moment,
Right.
we are being pushed
Right.
to consider everyone based on their group identity.
I don't even think we're being pushed. I think that is currently
It's
the
being
default.
demanded. Yeah, it's being demanded. You must recognize and
Celebrate.
celebrate and even more than that, like I'm willing to people are willing to subsume themselves into a group identity, and then the individuality is lost.
Well, and
We're all individuals. Yeah.
yes.
I think I can add to that, and I'm not sure if this is an actual quote or I'm mismatching from several quotes, but an individual thinker of society is a dangerous individual. I'm sure there's something along that lines out there somewhere, but I may have
I think
mismatched
you're-
a few things.
I think
or-
you're-
Probably an original
on it.
thinker or something like that.
I mean, I think you're on it because
Yeah.
again,
it came from something, though. I mean, it's not totally original, but yeah.
and I think it's appropriate for our current moment for the five of us
Yeah.
because here we are where Robert and Francis and I have so long been of very similar mindsets, and then now we're injecting two very unique individuals.
Not dissimilar, but unique. That's great.
But
they hold less in common with the three of us than the three of us do with each other. Let's put it that way.
yeah, but they've always been much more even individualistic,
Yes.
and I mean in a good sense,
Right,
not a
right.
selfish sense.
Well, that is.
But they are who they are, and they've never been ashamed of it.
Isn't that what
And
you're?
it's-
We've never apologized for who we are.
And I love it. And I love it. That's and I want to recognize that moment that we're in of bringing these two wonderful, unique personalities into our group.
See, and
Kind, sir.
Yeah, and the great thing about that, we are adding a diversity to the whole.
Yes.
To use the common parlance, even though we are all quite similar in other ways, and we're looking to make the group better through the individuality,
To
not
bring the new perspectives,
Right.
to make us think.
And what you're talking about, what I think is a great point that is not, I think, brought out as well as it should be, as it was, and certainly as it should be in society. When the individual submits to the group, it's done for one of two reasons generally. Either because they've been cowed into it,
Yes.
or because they are trying to glom onto whatever good they see in that group that they do not personally deserve.
Interesting.
And that's done in
I mean,
a couple of ways.
Finding belonging and finding a place there's nothing wrong with that.
No. Well, and
It's
that, I
natural
think
to
that's
us.
different.
We're called to that. We are tribal creatures.
Yeah, we're social animals.
Well,
It works. It works out real well until you end up in the middle of Guyana.
Yes.
Yeah, and a big
somebody's
guy-
handing you a cup of Kool-Aid.
Yeah,
No. Rite Aid.
Right.
Flavor Aid.
Flavor Aid.
Flavor Aid.
Flavor Aid. yeah.
Whatever.
Stirring the big tubs
Yeah.
of Flavor
Yeah.
Aid. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah.
But you're right. There's nothing wrong with finding a place where you belong. But that's what we're doing here. The kind of stuff that
And
I
we
think is-
don't demand that you give up who you are.
exactly.
In fact, the price of admission is that you retain that.
And we're
Yes.
not saying, we don't expect them to,
Conform.
to conform
Yeah.
or to just join. They're not joining for the reflected glory. It's not, shoot, what's the phrase? They're not virtue signaling by joining the brotherhood.
Right.
That's right. Yeah. This
And
is,
that's often what that group
Right.
Yeah.
joining and subsuming
Yeah.
is about.
is that you submit, whereas in this case, the true meaning of diversity should mean elevation by bringing in more, not submission.
Yes.
That's how I think that's what you're talking about.
So
is-
that's some really heavy shit based on one sentence from Michael Shara in 1974. I love that.
that's right.
You guys are awesome.
Well, as we always are. We got to move. We got to keep moving,
Yes,
folks.
I yield the floor, Captain.
All right, certainly. Marcus, go ahead. You're yours.
I'm going to move up a couple of years to 1979.
Great year.
Shitty year.
Yeah, it's a pretty crappy year, yeah.
Freshman
How
in
about
high
this
school,
one?
dude. I liked it. I like 79.
This is
Disco
from a
was still
scene,
the one.
and you all will know the movie. I want to be a woman. From now on, I want you all to call me Loretta. It's my right as a man. I want to have babies.
You want to have babies?
It's every man's right to have babies if he wants them.
How can you keep talking about having babies when you can't have babies?
Don't you oppress me.
I'm not oppressing you, Stan. Well, you got a fetus, going to gestate,
in a
is it-
box?
put it in a box. You haven't got a womb.
Exactly.
That's right. Oh, you.
So, yeah,
Which
how
fit
much
in-
more do you want to go?
That's
No,
what
no,
I'm saying.
that's
I mean,
fine.
you can keep going.
But
As much as we love Monty Python, I think that's the first time
fit in-
officially it's been part of
it
Code
fit
of
in
Honor.
quite well, and I had no idea of what Martin was going to pick.
Well, that's one of the things we do most of the time. We never know what we've done. We might have a theme, but we don't ever know what the quotations are. And if you get screwed by, oh my shit, he took mine, which has never happened, mind you, we've still got time to recalibrate. But you sure jumped right into that one with both feet, landed right in the cow pile on that one.
This
So,
is
yeah,
scratch.
where are you going with it? So,
John Cleese is doing a stage adaptation,
Yes.
Oh,
Adaptation.
yes.
That's why this is in
And-
the news lately.
and he is refusing to cut that scene.
Correct.
right.
Yes,
right.
he is.
And it is, wow, it is really,
It's very pertinent in today's atmosphere.
So, yeah. So, what meaning? So, generally, I mean, you've heard the code of honors before. Why is it a quote that has meaning? What is it important about you that makes that quote worthy of putting on the show?
Well, I mean, it's exactly what Martin was talking about: diversity, inclusion, and ridicule.
But a recognition of reality.
Yeah, and then there's a recognition. of
which that's how the
reality.
quote ends, is symbolic of
Yeah.
his fight against the Romans. It's
Yes.
symbolic of his struggle against reality.
Symbolic of his struggle against the Romans. It's symbolic of his struggle against reality.
Exactly. Yeah, it's that thing there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing is, well, it's my right this and my right that. It's like, well, you don't have a right not to be insulted. I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that what?
You have a right to make up stuff and call yourself whatever you want. You don't have a right to make me ignore reality and call you something else.
I think that's exactly.
Which
Is that what you're postulating?
I'm
Oh, so you're just throwing the hand grenade and stepping back.
I am.
Yes.
See, I don't know that
As
that's
is
entirely
Mark.
allowed.
duck and cover.
Yeah.
See, I don't know if that's entirely allowed in this particular format. You can't
Well-
just throw the quote out. You've got to comment on it.
See,
Well, I am.
Context.
I am. I'm commenting on the fact that it's relevant even today.
okay, go further.
That's a pretty piss poor comment.
Well, that's and it is.
It is relevant. Yes, it is relevant because it
Absolutely.
is-
So.
This is a huge discussion.
It is fascinating how well Monty Python stuff holds up.
It does.
Well, I would say that for us it holds up because we still find that scene just incredibly funny. I'm willing to bet that our children
Would be
Oh no, they're horrified.
are
horrified
horrified by that.
They
scene.
Exactly.
They think that is mean spirited. And therein, I think, is going to the kernel of truth that you're looking for, if I may be so bold, is that where does that need for compassion for one's neighbor, which is kind of what I think for all those of our children, I know I can speak for my own, they speak when it comes to that issue out of compassion. Don't oppress me. We would never dream of oppressing you. And of course, that's never the intention. But the
Problem is who defines oppression.
well, that is true because ultimately anyone can speak of being oppressed. There's a difference between what is true oppression and what is not. But it also gets back to the point of how often do we allow people to continue in delusional behavior, shall I say?
That's the key.
Uh,
It's
eh, eh,
delusional.
Exactly, because they wish it.
Are you,
Which
are
goes
you
back to that.
doing them a real service by enabling the delusion?
Well, and that's
is that
exactly-
compassion or not?
And therein lies the debate I think that we
I
can
would
have
say
so well.
I would say it isn't. Enabling. I mean,
Wow, we are really treading into territory that
We've
is-
never been to before.
Well, we've danced around some of these things, but I got to say this is pretty bold territory to take on.
I told you we
The
had no
protests-
idea where we were going to go in this one here. That's you're exactly right. How do we?
this is an injection of this unique, fresh perspective.
That's
from
right.
Marcus
My
and Cajun.
toes are wet, good sir. May I have a towel?
You have a comment?
No
sir?
water.
You have a comment, sir? Now, yeah,
No, I think it's following well along that lines. I mean, everything goes back to when you said Jay's children and they're getting their feelings hurt. They didn't learn how to accept loss gracefully and learn from it. So therefore, everything has to be fair across the board. Well, life is not fair.
Life's
well,
not
and that is absolutely essential for anyone of the age in the teens and 20s. They have. You're right. There is an idealism there that and I'm going to throw this out there that we at our age may have lost, and that's not a good thing. Losing our idealism,
I mean,
maturing, growing to
Idealism
lose certain.
is great, but just like with Kilrain and Chamberlain, you still have to come back down to earth.
Well, let me ask you this though. See, I don't know because I think you could make an argument. I'll play devil's advocate here because I think it's good food for discussion. I think you could make the argument that Stan, who wants to now be called Loretta, is merely living out what Buster Kilrain said. Judge me by who I am, not by my group.
And he's making a comment that he is society and, as we would say, reality has placed him somewhere he does not wish to be nor feel he should be.
That he does not feel like he fits.
That's correct.
But here's the thing. It's one thing for him to feel that way, but then to require
The
we
group.
acknowledge his reality.
You must now call me Loretta.
Because that's where we are. We are at the tipping point of using force.
Yes, it is now no longer you must recognize, you
That
must
is good.
also approve.
Yeah, that's right. And that is, and of course, force, we're not talking about, supreme executive power, and we're not talking about firearms, we're talking about social force. Am I correct with that? Is that what
I would
Well,
say
and legal.
And
We're
legal.
getting to the point where
next
it's legal,
step,
yeah.
You know, yes, there's a social force to it, but when that fails, there will be the next force. Will come.
which has to be legal?
Well, that's already been implemented in some places.
Some places that is correct. That's
So,
the next
you know,
battlefield.
And legal force is always backed by
By the threat of violence.
force.
Or incarceration, in other words.
Well, that's the threat of
Violent
violence.
force.
That's correct.
Because if you escape incarceration, they shoot you.
Well, again, again, not to be, I feel like I'm taking Martin's role here, being the contrarian, because I just want to point out the nuances in how we have to deal with this. We can sit around on a philosophical level talking about this all day long. The reality on the ground is much grayer because there is a sliding scale on how you have to deal with this as well. Because yes, how do you square somebody's personal rights and identity with, it's like, well, who should you be to tell me how I can speak? But on the other hand, if I'm speaking about you, where does my right to speak about you or to you end when it butts up against who you are? So if I go to you and I start calling, because this is an absurd and opposite way it would normally go, but if I identify the imperator here as a 90-year-old, 800-pound woman, and that's how I treat and call him, that butts up against reality. Obviously, that's, at least I presume, Marcus, that
fetish
is
here?
not how
You
you
lost your mic.
I lost it. I'm hearing me.
Oh, no. You can hear it now.
I got you. You're good.
But, I presume that's not how you personally identify. But it's a similar thing. There's a disconnect in how somebody's being treated and how they view themselves. And again, I'm not positing that one side or the other is better, because there should be a limit to what somebody can be forced to say and think. But on the other hand, where is the line? Where do you cross the line from courtesy and sibling love, because it's not fraternal, into that force?
It's
And there's
when
a
it's-
line.
and it's that tipping point of when you're drawing other
Well-
things. Say, if I insult you, okay, you then can say you've offended me, you've insulted me. But then going to the city council and saying this person offended me, we need to find some way for him to lose his job.
Well, now here, California recently passed a state bill that was amended so that parents in custody battles may be liable for child abuse if they do not affirm the gender identity of their children.
Which is clearly going to be used as a weapon
Oh, it's
in
very
custody.
definitely.
Well,
with no regard to the actual realities of what the child needs
Okay.
or is.
I got to toss one in here too now. I'm going to go on the contrary side. Who is anybody to tell somebody else how they should feel? You said speak or spoke
Right,
about.
right,
So
I
I'm
mean-
going to take that further. Just because what I feel on the inside, should anybody tell me whether that's wrong or right, per se, unless I'm planning to go out and commit mass shooting or something?
well, yeah. Once you step into the public arena, or
You have to have a thicker skin. Now, that's a totally different thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel this way. I want to be called this. Fine. That's your choice from the way I look at it.
Yeah.
But you should expect to have a thick enough skin to take other people that doesn't acknowledge the way you feel.
Exactly.
the expectation
You
that
accept
all
it.
must conform.
They don't
and
have to accept it.
you're allowed to have your own, shall we say, delusions or a viewpoint. I suppose is a better
We
word.
all have our own delusions. But
That's
yes.
right. Yeah.
Don't
Well, you're allowed to have your own viewpoint, but however, you must not. And here's, I think, Martin, this is what you're talking about. Well, you must not enforce the compliance with the world, because in many respects, and this is getting to my quote, which we'll probably get to in a second. Well, I won't spoil it.
Well,
Don't force your stuff on me.
That's it. That's exactly right.
I
And-
accept this for me. You accept it. I accept this for me. But you don't have to accept it.
Well, but then again, there is a certain level of you have a right to decent treatment, to compassionate treatment by others around
And
you.
my quotes are going to get to that. That's a whole other area. That,
Right,
Sounds-
and that's why I say there's a gray area between, if you're a 50-year-old genetic man who is trying to transition into being to living as a woman, whether that's through sex change, what they used to call a sex change operation, which is now called gender reassignment surgery. Do you, and that person may, wear dresses, makeup, may even get breast implants or take hormones or whatever, so that, at first glance, you might think, oh, that's a woman. Maybe a really ugly woman, but it's a woman.
Sometimes they're quite pretty.
Sometimes, yes.
I know.
So at what point do you
Usually
say,
is either is or is not.
Eye of the beholder.
Perspective, yeah.
I am the beholder.
do you out of courtesy, refer to that person as she?
I think so.
Or is it just that, Martin, are you okay, for instance, calling that person a she? As long as nobody says you absolutely have to, you're going to jail.
That's the difference, because there has to be an acknowledgement that the state is force. And if you're pulling the state into it, like Cajun says, you got to have a thick enough skin to understand some people are not going to recognize what you're trying to do. But if you, again, judge people
Yep.
individually, not in a group, and interact as that transitioning person with each individual, then the respect can grow.
Yeah, because ultimately, yes, that's right.
There's Cleese is commenting on the outlandishness of this. And
Well, certainly 44 years ago, it would have been outlandish.
and dropping it into the middle of 0 AD or 33 AD or this
Yeah.
moment of we've got all this other stuff. We're fighting the oppressions of the Romans, and you're worried about you want to be Loretta. This, and like the line goes, it's symbolic of our struggle against the Romans. Well, it's symbolic of a struggle against reality. There's bigger fish to fry here.
Well, there's always going to be bigger issues in somebody's.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
This is
fine.
definitely a first world problem.
But you notice they all give
First
in.
world yeah, I mean, fine. We'll call you Loretta, but let's not worry. Where it becomes ridiculous is because I want to have babies. And it's
Yes,
well, you're
yes,
not gonna have
I will
babies.
grant you that, and
Even
maybe
if-
that
And I think
marks
that-
us all for
And I think
grumpy
that
old
was-
white men. But
that is probably Cleese's intent.
Cleese's
is to-
intent is, yeah, okay, call yourself Loretta, but then to stand here and tell the rest of us you want to have babies, well, that's not real.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
not real.
And-
And we're in the middle of a struggle here that's real, that he, again, made fun of later, too, is, well, what have the Romans ever done for us? Well, you mean apart from sanitation, roads, clean
Public
drinking
safety.
water, public safety? Yeah. Well, let's face it, Ray, they're the only people who could keep order in a place like this. So...
what else? What have they done for us? Brought peace.
Peace.
All right, let's skip a bit.
So,
brother.
Marcus, sorry, I'm not trying to
no, I
captain
want
you,
to
but
make sure that Marcus had his last
we-
say before we move on.
discussed your quote enough.
Oh, yeah.
Do we yield the floor? I will yield again because I feel like I took that one over too.
No,
Oh, you and I both had a bit
that
on
is
that,
part
so-
of the way this works. Cajun, why don't you go next, and I'll go.
All right. I've got two, actually.
Just
Just
choose one.
One's short to go with the other one, but I think they built upon. And I'm going to chase the horse for just a second. I'd have to say, out of this group, I am a Western aficionado of unlimited standards compared to everybody else. Though Francis is very well into them.
I am,
But
yes.
I have always been the king of the Westerns around
you
here.
have.
John Wayne's always been one of my
Absolutely.
famous, of
Well,
course.
we did an episode on him, as you remember, and he still is.
Yes, and you didn't do him due justice yet either. He could have used more than one.
Well, okay.
We never do justice on anybody.
But
There's
anyway,
not enough time.
J.B. Books, The Shooters, his last
Oh
one.
yeah, one of our favorite movies. Yes.
And this is going down more to the individual now than the group that we was discussing a moment ago. I won't be wronged. I won't be insulted. I won't be laid a hand on. I don't do these things to other people, and I require the same thing from them, which that boils down to one word: respect. And I think that builds exactly off of what we was talking about.
That's very.
We
Yeah, you're
somebody's choices.
exactly nailing. I love that movie.
Nobody telling you how to do it or what to do.
I won't be the. I love the. I think the operative word in that quotation is require. I require that others do the same.
Respectful treatment.
Respectful treatment, and that is in many respects what we would call, at least in the church world, the social contract.
Yes.
That's that. In other words, we expect as civilized individuals, much as that word could be bandied about and perhaps even misused, that reminds us that as a society, we are expected to get along. And we are supposed to do that on our own. The law and force, as you were talking about earlier, Martin, is only when we fail to do that. And in many respects, that's kind of what we're talking about here, is if we could all do that, even this enormous disparity of opinion, where even outside of reality, as we've talked about, can be tolerated.
Now, my second quote gets further onto that side of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we usually do one per, but since you're new, we'll allow it.
5-word quote.
Okay. All right. Wait. Go ahead and throw it out there.
You can't not pass this up while we're doing the other one.
Right.
And this is Will Anderson, The Cowboys. The only John Wayne movie I ever saw in the theater. Grandfather took me to, and one of the best.
Yeah. Great movie.
A big mouth don't make a big man. So no matter how much you yell and scream, you should be doing it my way. Don't make it right, and it sure don't mean respect.
Well, and
So-
yeah, I like that.
Again, just to throw out to make sure we're at least acknowledging all the various sides on this. You could take your first quote, and apply that in the same thing we were just talking about.
Exactly.
At what point is it an issue? Because you say it's because it's a great quote about the autonomy of the person and having that
Autonomy?
Yeah, that's not I don't think that's a word boner, but because
Not quite.
not quite. I don't think it
A good word, nevertheless, though.
but because it really what it is, it's basic human decency. It goes back to my thing, that inherent dignity.
Yeah, that's right. If
really is that.
dignity
Now-
is there, then of course those things that Books was talking about must be given.
Yeah.
And-
I'm not trying to make it difficult for you today.
No,
I'm
no,
actually
no, no,
being easy on you.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't always.
That ain't
do-
always going to stay that way.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Well, I don't always go to inherent dignity with my quote, but although I often do. But the thing I thought was interesting about your quote was about you won't be wronged, you won't have a hand laid on you,
Won't be insulted.
won't be insulted. And again, to go back to the last thing about the group identity and having that forced upon one, and Martin very rightly said, when the power of the state intercedes in these issues, that's when things become problematic. But is it not sometimes necessary that the state step in?
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
Strictly to make sure that people are treated equally under the law.
Well, sometimes the law doesn't exist yet, and the states.
or the law is
state
flat
cannot
out incorrect. As
enforce
slavery is the
respect.
example. Yeah.
The state cannot enforce respect. It can only enforce laws. Sometimes the laws may be respectful. Sometimes they are not respectful at all. I mean, just look at all the
Well-
Jim Crow laws from back in the day.
Right.
That's kind of where
No
I was
respect
rolling.
at all.
Yeah.
And respect is it's two things. It's how you treat, as well as how you think. Now, I can disrespect each one of you and how I think about you, but still be perfectly respectful to your face. I may not mean it.
well,
You
and-
probably realize I don't mean it.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that is essentially at the heart of the law, as we're talking about here, is that the law can enforce your respectful behavior and speech.
And actions.
And actions.
And they
Yeah.
can enforce your lawful behavior.
That's
I would
correct.
say.
That's right.
Not respectful.
Well, yeah. Well, assuming that they're intended to be similar, most cases, but it cannot and must not try and force that upon your thoughts. And
Yes, because doing so is classically Orwellian.
that's right. It's tyranny. That's right.
It's tyranny. It's
The
tyranny.
thought police.
Exactly. And we've talked about that on many occasions.
Right,
That
because again,
you are free to, in your own mind,
to
be
be
the bigot that
Loretta,
you might be.
yeah, I'm not advocating everybody who says, okay, you think you're Loretta, that means you're completely out of your brains and the state has to shoot you. No, the state needs to respect you as an individual,
You are still a citizen.
guarantee your rights, and we need to acknowledge all of that.
The issue is defining what those rights are.
Right,
currently.
it's just
Yeah, there are very few things that take away the.
don't infringe upon my rights to think
Different.
because of you feel you have this or that identity.
Right.
That's fine. Be whatever you want to be. It's awesome.
As I like to say, you do you.
You do you. But
Boo.
I'm going to do me. And I'm going to
There's a
have
basic.
sympathy
I so want to make a comment on
and
that.
compassion
But we're
for,
serious.
for the whatever issues you may be facing, but you don't have any right to like come after my employment, come after my livelihood,
That's
just because I don't think
the same way that you do.
the same way that, okay. Again,
But-
fine, if you want to pretend to be a woman, that's fine, but don't come around saying, I want to do this because I want to have babies. You can't have babies. The fetus can't gestate in a box. And for saying that, I should not be in danger of losing my livelihood or my freedom.
Yes, and therein lie the code of conduct that is being enforced for non-compliance is it's extra legal. Of course, it's social in most cases.
Yeah.
Not always, but yes.
Not always. That's right. And don't
But again, that they're advocating the use of
legal force.
government force
Or violence.
or violence.
often violence.
To
And
again-
therein lies the insidiousness of any movement.
Yes.
That once you enforce compliance, it goes back to a great Babylon 5 episode. You'll remember this. When Sheridan was captured, they talked about we do not want conversion. Excuse me, we do not want compliance. We do not want cooperation. Sorry. We do not want cooperation. We want conversion. And therein lies the problem is no one has the right to expect that of anyone.
You
Because
shall
that's
be
the Spanish
assimilated.
Inquisition, and nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Man, he just slid right in.
Slid right in there.
Sorry, I talked over
So-
top of Cajun, though.
Yeah, what did you say?
I said it, and you will be assimilated.
Well, there you go. That's exactly right. That's the same thing.
Your
the hive-
biological and technical distinct.
and that there is a movement for compliance, which ultimately is become part of the hive mind or be destroyed. That's what
Yeah.
you're talking about.
And
here.
my second quote was insinuating the big mouth is the government or political machine or whatever it is. I was not referring to one person in particular.
Actually, I took it as the
Very individual.
people who are screaming the loudest, the people. But I can see where you take it that way.
Right.
One thing that I would like to point out, maybe this would be a good way to
Segue into the bourbon break.
no, because we still have your quote. Bourbon break is before me.
Well, we can do that. Yeah, that's we never
Yeah,
done
so
this.
we need to keep
No,
moving.
well, yeah, but I mean, it just means we move the bourbon break back a little bit.
No problem.
Your rights cannot impose obligations upon somebody else.
Exactly.
Well, that's correct because you're absolutely right on that. Yeah, that.
My right of free
government
speech.
standards today, they can.
Well, my right of free
There's an attempt
speech
for that.
doesn't mean you have to pay for me to get on the internet or pay for me to have.
You're guaranteed a voice, not
an audience.
Not an audience.
Exactly. And, I'm guaranteed all kinds of things, but that doesn't mean that you have to participate in them or support them. Now, if you choose to, that's
Right.
great.
I mean, you can say any damn dumb thing you want. I don't have to listen.
Right.
That's right.
But actually, I can't even say any damn dumb thing I want because there are limitations on that.
There are.
It's called slander.
That's correct.
Well, I was thinking yelling fire in a crowded theater is the.
You're exactly right. There are legal moments for that, but that is a high bar to get to that level. It
Yes,
should be,
yeah.
and it should be, as we're saying here. Can we slip?
Should be, but isn't it abused off too often these days?
That is,
They hurt my feelings.
if you've got the money, and therein lies some of the injustice that we can talk about. If you've got the money to take somebody to court because they said that, you're right. That's a comment for another day, I think, because that's a longer commentary. Because I want to keep us moving because I've got a good one. Dang
Let's
on it,
let's
guys.
go. Let's do
Let's
yours,
move this on.
Francis.
Let's get straight to
All
the
right.
quote there.
Oscar Wilde.
Oh, excellent.
We love Oscar Wilde. Absolutely, we love
Good
Oscar
choice.
Wilde. One of the greatest thinkers of ever in human history.
Didn't he like to go down in the woods naked too?
Oh, absolutely.
That's what I thought.
Right. Wilde was a incredible personage, highly treated with great injustice in his life, very much because
And after.
because he was a total nonconformist in almost every way, and he was in the middle of a society that you must conform,
You must
or
conform.
you will
Victorian society is
be had no mercy.
very conformal.
Very much so, and his voice, thank God, it has survived through the time to give us his unique perspective because he's very good. He's just, the man's wit. My God, there's very few that can do that.
Let's get to the quote.
That's right. I knew he was going to say that. Too much setup, Francis.
Do it.
That's okay.
Saddle that pony.
Sorry. Life is never fair, and perhaps that is a good thing for most of us. That it is not.
Ah, yes.
Life sucks. Wear a helmet.
Not bad, not bad. I hadn't considered that, but yeah, life is fair, and for most of us, that is a good thing. That it is not.
Why is it not? Let's talk about that.
Why is that?
Oh,
that's
you
a very-
learn.
Well, we at our age have recognized
That's
this is an absolute truth that life is not fair, and nor do we expect it to be.
Well, that's because people mostly define fair nowadays as whatever I want.
Yes.
Yeah.
And carrying with it any imposition on anyone else along the way.
And Wild's point is, you're lucky life's not fair
That's exactly it. That's exactly what he's talking about here.
because
If you
You
got
might
what you
not-
deserved,
yeah.
you would be in prison or who knows whatever.
yeah,
Something
that's
to do with
karma's
it.
a bitch.
Karma.
Well, my point is, you'd never evolve, you never gain, you never learn from your failures. Failures,
Exactly.
not necessarily that you'd be in prison from the things that should be kept in the back of your mind, maybe. But
That's true.
I look at it from a more positive point of view that he was pushing. I think he was trying to push out a more social positive attitude on why it wasn't fair. Don't sit boo-hoo about it. Take it, grab it, and make it better.
Learn from your mistakes, because if you're not given that opportunity, if you get what you deserve, you're toast and you never grow. You're exactly right. There's a
Very,
It's the-
very well said, Cajun. I really like that.
Yeah, it's the way I like to talk about salvation. When it comes down to justice and mercy, I'll take mercy any day of the
Absolutely,
week.
absolutely. If we all got what we were deserved, we would all be screwed long, long ago. And Wilde is recognizing that that is an absolute truth. That you damn well, and of course,
To a certain degree, to Cajun's point, we do need to get what we deserve occasionally, because that's what causes us to learn.
Interesting.
So-
yeah.
But
Yeah,
that's
if you're never corrected, you continue to do
right.
things outside of
Sometimes
You all are speaking of social correction.
No, I think any kind of
correction,
social,
as opposed to necessarily divine correction.
well, even divine correction, because God sometimes will send a lightning bolt your way.
God works in mysterious ways.
He does.
I am a perfect example.
Yo, God, yes.
Preach it, brother.
Yes.
Preach it.
Yes, you are. You are an excellent example of that.
Being swatted down by the universe
And still, you get back up
like a cockroach.
like a cockroach.
Amen, Brother Cockroach.
He's the only one who will survive nuclear holocaust.
He is.
Marcus.
But getting what you deserve sometimes is a mercy,
Oh yeah, because it's
because
forcing,
that's the corrective. That's
it's forcing you to do something you would have never done otherwise, but which you should have done all along.
Right. In that case, it's justice. In that case, is a teaching moment as opposed to a punishment. The only time until you stand before God, justice is a good thing. When you stand before God, that's when you really want mercy.
Yeah, and that's we could
but-
talk a long time on that subject.
But justice in this world is often not only just for your good, but it's for our good too, because
Yeah.
that's how society protects itself. So I'm not saying
it's that, and
we
there's-
need mercy in every case.
There's a punitive aspect to our justice system
Unfortunately,
that I
yes.
have. I've come to have issues with. There's part of me. You guys remember the movie Crimson Tide?
yes.
Denzel Washington, Gene Hackman, one of the greatest movies.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. They have that conversation about nuclear war, which of course they're on a nuclear submarine and things are about to happen, and Denzel is talking about, he's coming from. They talk about von Clausewitz, and they talk about how, well, Clausewitz really meant, that war is the true enemy, and of course Hackman says, no, I'm not into that. He says, to me, I'm a simple old sailor. That when it comes to should we have dropped the nuclear bombs, he said, absolutely, drop that effer twice. And it was of course a dynamic of the difference between their opinions and their viewpoints on, in many respects, justice, as we're talking about here. Because Denzel properly and correctly, because he is the hero of the story, talks about that, mercy is really, we can't do this. We cannot go take justice to its logical fullest end, because that is Holocaust, as he worded it.
Yes. Well, in his case, morally he was right.
Correct.
Legally he was wrong.
As they said at the very end of the movie, that's correct. Both of you, as Jason Robar says, you both are put us in a hell of a mess, because you were both right and you were both wrong.
Yes.
And
Yeah, because you don't want to prosecute the guy for not dropping the bomb.
that's right.
That's not going to fly.
That's right. So
On the other hand, He didn't follow orders.
That's
that were
correct.
very clear.
Quiet retirement is the answer. and the
that's what they
problem
did.
Goes away.
That's exactly what
out of
they
sight, out of mind.
That's-
Imagine that with the government.
And that's why that movie, I love it so much, because it is not just an action movie in a submarine. It is about this moral dilemma and these two people coming at it from very different perspectives.
Well, it's snakes and otters on a submarine, is what it is.
God, my Lord, that's so fantastic. I love
Because
it.
I mean, it is a discussion about an
It-
eternal
it's
question.
exactly it. That's why that movie is far greater than most people give
I got a
credit
better eternal question. I think Sean Connery's viewpoint in The Rock on the prom queen might be even better.
for. That's one of
I knew
Martin's,
that'd get a laugh.
That's one of Martin's absolute favorite quotes. No, you can't say it because it drops the F bomb, but you can.
Winners do
always-
what, Morton?
Losers always whine about their best. Winners go home and the prom queen.
That's right. Hey, Sean
Nick
Connery,
Cage's response was, "I married the prom queen."
Sean Connery is, of course,
Well,
one
I
of
think
our-
it was the stripper, actually.
one of our idols. He's one of our. He was the greatest.
Done
of
an
all.
episode on Sean, yes.
We did him, yeah, and his memory is still, and his movies still live on.
How was my accent? Was that pretty
It was not
close?
bad. It was not
Not
bad.
bad.
I'll give, as Sean Connery imitations go, it was pretty good. It was pretty.
Losers always whine about their best.
That's all right. Speaking of which, it gives us a great opportunity to slide into that mellow bourbon break that we need before we let Robertius Hamarius to do that.
So, Francis, you poured. So,
I noticed something different right off. I said licorice on this one. So I'm going to bounce that out there right
Yeah,
away.
because we're actually, this is a different one we've not done before. We're all drinking the same one here. This is the Old Forester, the last one we had to do of the four of
Whiskey Row
Whiskey
series.
Row, thank you, series. The 1910. It's called Old Fine Whiskey. It's 93 proof, which is actually not very high.
No, it's a little on the high side. It's getting up there, but it's
Yeah,
not super high.
It's not like that standard 84, which is kind of like the low end. It's not heavy like 100. No, of course, most of our ice has melted at this point.
And I done had a refill.
Yeah, that's right. You've seen licorice in that.
I taste licorice. I do.
I can see it. I can see
Yes,
that.
Something similar to
yeah,
licorice, even if
yeah,
it's
I've brought
not.
that up before. There's a couple of them that I get a licorice.
Fennel.
Fennel.
Fennel's very licorice. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I can. I think the rye in the last one is still hanging around my taste buds.
I was going to say, 'cause I'm not picking up a rye with
But
you guys.
I'm,
Well, I didn't have the same thing you did the last time, though. We
So-
you guys had
Road
Monk's
first.
Road last time.
Yeah.
So
I'm getting definitely a sweeter bourbon than
I
the
think
last
the
time.
mash bills for all the whiskey rows are fairly similar. Mm-hmm. It's just in the blending and the aging and
Right.
different ways they do them. All four have great, complex flavors. I thought the 1920 was the most complex.
and that's where we started, ironically. And
Had all that-
I don't know that any have equaled that.
yeah,
is that
they
fair?
were so stacked. It was awesome.
I mean,
Well,
they
we've not had a bad Old
No,
Forester.
absolutely. It's one of our favorite brands. One of that and Wild Turkey are two of the brands that we go to
Yeah,
probably
we
more
had
than any
the
other.
Statesman last time, and
That's right.
And these whiskey row ones.
Yeah. Well, even that signature 100 of the Old Forester, that's the low end bottle with the screw top. I mean, I think they could put a cork in that bottle and sell it at a higher price. I think it's that good.
Yeah, if you asked me my favorite of all these, because now that we've had them all, it might be this 1910, but I'm probably going to lean more towards, and here's an irony for you, 1870, the Old Fine Whiskey. That first one, that it's a little rawer, but it's not as powerful or as potent. It's just something about that. I liked that better. Martin,
I don't know. The 1920 is hard to top.
that's what I expected you to go
I
to.
think
Yeah.
this one's a number 2, though. It's
Okay.
It's really good. I mean, I agree with Cajun that the hint of licorice, and then not a ton of sweetness, but a little bit of sweetness, and
I'm catching that.
it just kind of all works.
There's some honey in the background there, I would say.
Yeah.
Is that what that see, now that you've said that word, all of a sudden I'm reevaluating the whole thing. I poured myself a little bit more. Yeah, there's the sweetness
It's got a great flavor profile on your tongue, which I like.
Marcus, comments?
Not a whole lot of burn going down or anything. It's mostly subtle when you get there.
Just
Yeah.
for listeners, Marcus is over here and battling his nose over the top of the glass to see what.
And that's a real instrument, let me tell you.
Yeah, it is a beak. I do have a beak.
Since we said many times that you wouldn't be imbibing.
So
I mean, I can smell the sweetness.
Right.
breathe it in through your mouth instead of your nose. Let it come into your sinuses from the back. Like that.
No, I prefer going the other way.
Oh, well, leave that one alone.
That's how we were. What was our
Yeah.
bourbon ambassador at the Fraser?
Yeah, I can't remember. his name.
Sam.
Um,
Is that his name?
Speaking of the Fraser, what was our friend from New York? What was her name?
Sprague.
Sprague.
Sprague. That, yes. Shout out to her as always.
Yeah, Francis gave me a look last time I did it, so I dropped it.
Well, since you brought up the Fraser, have to give
Well,
her a
it's
shout
been a
out.
while. That's fine.
She was fun to talk to.
A ton of fun.
She was, yes.
A New Yorker plopped down next to Snakes and Otters at the Fraser at a bourbon.
She had
tasting.
no idea what was.
No,
she was in
and
for.
she held her own. She just laughed and had a great time with us.
Good thing I wasn't with y'all.
She immersed herself in the when in Rome type thing where you
Yeah.
were,
Yes.
and it was.
She was like a house sitter. As you guys probably haven't
Yeah.
heard this.
I
story.
might have had to invite her out to see how bourbon seeds are grown.
There you go.
I think she would have went with it.
She probably would have. She was just enjoyable to talk to.
Yeah, exactly.
She was
The art
great.
of conversation was not lost upon her, and as you all know, that is a rare thing in this day and age.
Yeah.
Most folks can't
Yes.
hold
She
great
just
conversations.
that's what she does. She goes around the country, house sits for people, and
Sees the world.
and
Sees the country.
Yeah, immerses herself in what's interesting about that place, and fate.
Found a way to
That's
enjoy
right.
life, get paid for it, and
Yep.
Yep.
And she was, having a great time sitting next to Snakes and Otters having bourbon.
So, anything else you want to say about
I was
this?
going to say, did you get yours? Did you able to make your comments on it?
Yeah. I
Okay,
was talking
I
about-
think we're good. Yeah, because I'm about to hand it over to you.
As always, a quick repeat of our
Oh yeah, you
quotes.
want to make sure we repeat our quotes, guys.
All right,
Let's go in order.
So, Martin,
so Michael Shara, writing through Buster Kilrain, any man who judges by the group is a peewit.
All
Right.
Marcus.
Let me find it here.
well, since we all know it's-
I want to be a woman. From now on, I want you all to call me Loretta.
That's good. Cajun.
all right, mine was John Wayne Rose. I won't be wrong. I won't be insulted. I won't be laid a hand on. I don't do these things to other people, and I require the same from them. With a follow-up of a short one, a big mouth don't make a big man.
All right, and mine was from Oscar Wilde. Life is never fair, and perhaps it is a good thing for most of us that it is not.
Right. Excellent quotes all around. So I actually had this one picked out ahead of time, which I almost never do.
Yeah, you're usually figuring it out as we lay.
But
it
I hadn't
out.
looked. I have a document on our well, originally it was on our Google Drive for our Snakes and Otters, and I have it on my OneDrive now. But it's a list of quotes that I liked that I wanted to have, and I've chosen many quotes from this. Often these are motivational quotes because I really like.
Good
those.
go-to.
And this one was the very first one on the list, and honestly, I don't even remember reading it before, but it just struck me because I thought it was so apropos for what we are doing here at Snakes and Otters. And this is from This Is Water by David Foster Wallace. I have no idea what that is. I mean, it's a book, obviously, but I don't know anything other than that being the source. So, 20 years after my own graduation, I have come gradually to understand that the liberal arts cliche about teaching you how to think is actually shorthand for a much deeper, more serious idea. Learning how to think really means learning how to exercise some control over how and what you think. It means being conscious and aware enough to choose what you pay attention to and to choose how you construct meaning from experience. Because if you cannot exercise this kind of choice in adult life, you will be totally hosed. I gotta say, I love that last part. You'll be totally hosed.
Yeah. Wow, you went long on us there.
I did. I normally do not go anywhere
We
near.
don't-
this.
we're usually a sentence or two. So that takes a moment to percolate down into.
It does. I'll tell you why I chose it. Why it spoke to me.
Said host.
It's partially because of it's talking about the liberal arts
I
education.
knew that's where you were going to go. That's you're
We have
exactly
talked
right.
many times about how important that has been to us.
We've said that. I mean, we've said it teaches you how to think.
Right.
Yeah,
and
we've said
it's
that.
not- it is a cliche, and it because it's a truism. It's not just something that people say to make themselves sound better or feel good about themselves.
It really means something much deeper.
Gets past that. It survives that.
Yeah.
You can
And
do
there-
that, and some do, but ultimately we're living proof.
Right, there would be no snakes and otters without Bellarmine College and the liberal arts education that we got there.
That is correct.
I mean, never mind the fact that we all met there. I mean, that's part of it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the men that we were formed into being without us even realizing.
The outlook, the perspective,
Yeah.
the curiosity.
The pathways in which we were all set
Right.
were formed there, which of course is what college, if it functions properly, is supposed to do.
Yes, absolutely.
Teleologically speaking, yes.
And
that's its
this whole
intention.
idea about, ideologically thing you want to do.
Teleological.
Oh, yes. Word boner. Yeah, that definitely
That's
gets
good. That's one of my favorite words.
teleological. But the thing I think is really actually ended up fitting very well with what we've been talking about learning how to think really means learning how to exercise control over how and what you think.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it, yeah.
That's
a much deeper way of expressing it.
yes, and it really goes to the
Really,
heart.
yeah, the core of individuality.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And not just the core of individuality, it's the core of understanding not only yourself, but your place in the world. And, choosing how what you think about and how you think about it, it's very much means to me being deliberate in all that goes on inside your head. I don't know about you guys, but it seems like there's always a running conversation with myself in my head.
Oh, several.
Don't have
Yeah, that's right.
I don't have moments other than when I'm reading, watching television where I'm actually paying attention to it, and even then though I'm taking it in and evaluating.
Oh yeah,
what's
absolutely.
going
Yeah,
on.
yeah,
I don't have moments where there's nothing going on.
And
It makes
yeah,
it really
'cause-
hard to go to sleep at night sometimes.
Oh, yeah, your engine is
Amen.
always running, and you find yourself sometimes watching some things on television, that come on, and I'll be kind because Mrs. Francis doesn't usually listen, but it's like sometimes if she's watching something that's dumb, in my opinion, I don't want to watch it. But other times when she's watching some stuff that are really great, because she does that too, we'll evaluate it. I mean, there was one that we were watching some comedy stuff, and they went into a screed, and both of us immediately said, "Turn that effing shit off," because it was a political screed, and we weren't gonna do that. I'm thinking, the 20 some odd version of me wouldn't have thought differently about that. But you get to the point where you realize, now that I can think and realize that's totally not what that's not why I came to see you. That's not what I wanted to hear. And I'm not afraid to hell with it.
Well, comedy, just to use your example, comedy today is far different than
Oh,
comedy
very much so.
when we were
Very
in
much so.
college.
That's right.
Yeah.
Robin Williams, a lot of his comedy he couldn't do today.
Well, yeah, exactly. With George Carlin as well.
Yeah.
Some of the
Oh, let's even go Richard
Richard Pryor. Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
That's
Fox.
Oh my gosh, yeah, Red Fox, yeah.
oh yeah.
I mean, you can pick many a one that wouldn't be tolerated today
Sam
by
Kinison.
any means.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sam
That's
Kinison.
hard.
Well, Sam Kinison was barely tolerated in his day.
Well, that's correct. He was subversive in many ways.
Yes, but that's one of the great things about comedians when it's done well.
Yeah.
Comedy should be subversive.
Comedy should be.
It should be.
subversive.
It should
And
be
it
challenging.
It
Yeah,
should make you
exactly a
think.
social commentary on things. But when it's partisan and when it's particular, and this was a polarizing issue that I won't go into because I go down a rabbit hole. When you're absolutely insulting 50% of the population because they believe differently than you on this.
When you're telling your audience through comedy, and I'm using the air quotes,
Yes.
listeners,
Yeah.
how to think.
That's it.
It goes right back to what we've been saying.
That's
is that
correct.
you
And it was
cannot
like,
do that.
oh yeah, and it's like all
Unlike-
all intelligent people think the way I do. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
F you, buddy or lady. I'm out of here because I know better. I know better, and where you are is absolutely
And that's
not where I am.
Yeah, I mean that's
Well-
the genius of John Cleese.
yeah.
And Colin.
and-
And
and
Colin.
Colin was
I mean,
good
he
with
made
that, too.
you think. He didn't tell you how to think.
Exactly. That's
I think sometimes it was implied.
we,
But yeah.
we want to make you think, and then you come down where you want. But that's
Well, this
ties
is,
right to the Monty Python and,
Yeah.
and Loretta.
but this is also why you won't catch us watching The View.
Yes.
Well, that's
Yes.
true because
Sometimes
that's
it is entertainment when they
Well-
start about ready to pull hair.
No,
Well, that's for the spectacle, not for the content.
That's when you go back for YouTube
Yeah.
after you've heard about
I
it.
mean, yeah, I mean that's gladiator games.
that,
and stuff.
that,
yeah.
that's like watching NASCAR just for the wrecks.
Yes, exactly.
Very well put.
Is that like watching fights for the hockey? I mean, hockey for the fights?
Well, yeah, you're exactly right on that because that's the Coliseum, folks. That's
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
that's the blood sport that we still crave.
Panem et circuses.
Yes, blood circuses. Yes, very good,
Man,
Martin. I'm
look at
very,
you with
very-
the Latin.
It's
Yeah.
Fantastic. That's right.
We need Latin in every episode somehow. I'm not sure how
Yes.
we do that.
Well, you know what? Do it again.
Panem et circuses.
Word boner,
Yeah,
just
that's
because
right.
it's in Latin.
That's right. I think that you earned that.
But
Very good.
Vici, what was it? We saw
Veni vidi vici. Yes. I
Came, I
came, I
saw.
saw, I conquered. That's
Yes.
right. That's we can certainly do. But that's one of the great ones. Did we ever? We never did a Julius Caesar episode, did we?
not specifically. We
no,
covered him in. our
Yeah, we've
series on
talked
Rome.
about him on Rome, and of course, in a lot of things. Maybe
good March.
Yeah, that's not a bad way to go. I'm thinking
Yeah.
he is so foundational for so many of us, for so much of what we know, and it's again aside. Robert, bring us home.
Well, hang on, Mike.
How about Caligula?
Why did I not know that you would go there?
He's invited to every party. Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I really, and I'm sure this is why I put it in here, this whole thing about being conscious and aware enough to choose what you pay attention to. Conscious and aware.
Right.
I think that's the next part that we really have to acknowledge, because to Martin's original bit, and also to the imperators here, being conscious and aware. Being conscious and aware that, you can't have babies, right?
Right.
Conscious and aware that I am different from each one of you, even though we share similarities and traits probably up to 90% because of our background and who we are, what we look like, and our beliefs. Yet we are all different enough that we bring something unique to the show. And if somebody were to look at us and say, "Oh, well, that's a bunch of 50-something white guys," I don't need to listen to them. Then that's a huge injustice, not just for us, because I don't care if you think
It's
I'm
being a peewit.
it's being a peewit,
Very good.
Judging
Peewit.
by the group.
I like this peewit
and it's not
word.
you're actually choosing to not
Yeah.
think about something,
Right.
You're choosing not to
Here,
evaluate.
right. Not evaluating it. I dismiss Martin. Fine. Don't dismiss Marcus and Cajun. These are different voices than what you've heard from us before.
Right. If you want to dismiss all five of us, do so after listening to us, not before. And that's part of the problem. We've talked many times about this on the show. The social discourse is all about that. It's all about not just winning; it's all about destruction of the other.
Yes.
And that's it goes into Martin, the whole thing about what you were saying about state using force or implying that we will get the state to enforce it. It's all about
Because the state is nothing but force.
essentially, yes.
Well,
sometimes
yeah,
it's
we haven't-
benevolent force.
We haven't said that, but you're right. Of course, that goes back to some
And
earlier
that's why
conversations.
the founders knew it had to be limited.
Yes, sometimes force is appropriate. So so we can't say that force is always bad.
But you have to recognize the state is force.
Yes, you do have to recognize
Force is
that.
appropriate, awesome. But when it's not appropriate,
That's a problem.
yeah.
Yeah. So we could go on.
Just
I could go
letting
on
that
and on.
broad libertarian streak.
Yes, in case because I think because I don't think our listeners would ever have gotten that. That you have a broad libertarian streak.
Hey, Martin, how's my field of fire at the ranch?
It's pretty good, man.
There's truth to that. There's truth.
He ain't the only one.
I think
You give him a compressor, a nail gun, and a bucket of nails, he can hold off the army for 2 hours.
You need a pressure washer and diesel fuel and a torch.
Oh, baby. And I need to dig a moat.
Well, he's got to be careful because he doesn't want to burn up the bourbon crop either.
Right.
That's true. You've got almost a lake beside you and a pond in front of you, so you've almost got a damn moat, and the river's behind
Well,
you. So
about.
just about you had one way in and a drawbridge.
Ain't nobody but a special operator climbing that cliff and back.
Well, that's very true. That's very true. Boys, we have
And
done
I'll just note that there are no trees in my yard.
That's true. That is very true. You don't
no
have that
place to
unobstructed
hide.
field of fire. Very
You
well.
put the claymore behind the trees, fool.
Well, in his place, there's neighbors out there, but in your case, you're exactly right. You want to make sure you're in the tree line. Boys, we have really done a good job. I was worried how we were going to do this with 5 of us, but I think we did spectacular.
Worked
Did
well.
very
Well,
well.
know what I just looked up? The Ides of March does fall on a Friday.
Oh, perfect. So
well,
we
there we
have
go.
to do.
Yeah,
Julius
we'll,
Caesar.
we'll we'll have to do Julius Caesar in that one. So, Martin,
All
just
right.
put that in your thinker blinker, and we'll come across on it. Boys, I think we're done.
I think we have sufficiently pummeled the expired eagle.
All right, so that leads us to the question of what's
What's
next?
next?
Gentlemen and ladies and all our Otterites out there, you have no idea what's coming next time. I'm going to tell you only this much. It is episode 200, so this is going to be a hoopajube, as we know.
Because it is on a fifth
Because it-
Friday.
it's a fifth Friday.
Special out of sequence hoopajube.
That's
really.
right, and it is
Yes.
going to be amazing. It is going to be so. I tingle, gentlemen. I tingle with the possibilities.
Yeah, well, you
of
didn't have to share that.
That's right. Of what's coming. So be here next time.
We hope you enjoyed another pointless discussion of eternal questions. Remember, new episodes drop every second and fourth Friday at 6 a.m. Eastern, just in time for your morning commute. And every fifth Friday, we drop a special Hoopajube episode. Spread the word we are on all the major platforms, and leave us a review. That helps others find us. We're also on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, as well as our website, snakesandotters.com. Join us next time. Same snake time, same otter channel.